Hello, everybody. This is Gerald Celente, and it's Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022. And again, we're very, very honored to have with us Judge Andrew Napolitano, a real man of American spirit, knowledge, concern, caring, love, and kindness that is missing in this country, particularly in what they used to call the legal system. Now it's just a political system. Judge, thanks for being here the day before Thanksgiving. We're very thankful to have you.
Pleasure to be with you, my dear friend, and an early happy Thanksgiving to you and your family and your great viewers and listeners.
Thank you. You have about an article that is coming out on Thanksgiving in America. And you have a quote here by Edmund Morgan. And I don't know who he is, but he said, and you could tell me, government requires make-believe. Make-believe that the king is divine. Make-believe that he can do no wrong, or make-believe that the voice of the people is the voice of God. Make-believe that the people have a voice, or make-believe that the representatives of the people are the people. Make-believe that governors are the servants of the people. Make-believe that all men are created equal, or make-believe that they are not.
It's hard to read that with a straight face because each of those make-believes are statements that were believed at some point in our history. Morgan was a historian at Yale who had some serious libertarian tendencies at the end of his career, in which he sort of mocked much of history because of the myth that with which government surrounds itself. I love that. I love that quote. I put it in there because today's column or tomorrow's column is a bit of a rant about how Jefferson wanted government to be chained down to the Constitution, and government has broken those chains. Government is now the master rather than the servant. And the sooner we recognize this, the better off we'll be. The sooner we realize that government steals our property, steals our liberty, restrains our freedom, insinuates itself in our economic activities, all for its own benefit. The sooner we recognize that, the better off we'll be. Government fights wars so that it can grow and it can enrich its benefactors. And it doesn't care what innocents are slaughtered. Just look at what's going on in Ukraine. It's being done to help the American military-industrial complex. I don't want to sound like Saul Alinsky, but sometimes even those creeps on the left are right. And in this case, they agree with us.
There's so few are every Democrat voted to send $40 billion of our money to keep bloodying the killing fields in Ukraine. There's no left anymore. They're left out.
When Rand Paul in the Senate and Thomas Massey in the House each proposed the same amendment to provide for an accounting of what happens to the money, to have American officials of the Treasury Department there with the money in Ukraine. Guess what happened to those amendments? They were buried. They weren't even permitted to come up for a vote in the Senate and the House. That's how corrupt this is. And now there are these rumors that the Ukraine government was complicit with this character, Sam Bankman-Fried, and FTX and his bankruptcy. And Fried notoriously gave millions and millions to the Democratic Party. Did that come from Ukraine? And if it came from Ukraine, did it come from the American Treasury? Can't make this up.
Again, in that article by this fellow Morgan about, make believe that the people have a voice, or make believe that the representatives of the people are the people.
Well, that is an absolute myth. The representatives are there to enhance and enrich themselves, either materially or in terms of power.
Again, they call these people our leaders. They actually use that language, that we're supposed to look up to them as our leaders. How can anybody with a brain bigger than a pea look up to a piece of crap like the Republican Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell? How could anybody look up to a little Chucky Schumer? How could anybody look up to a lousy Lindsey Graham? How could anybody look up to these stupid, arrogant, ignorant clowns that are, quote, our leaders? And they don't represent us. Look at the money that was spent in this election. It's a democracy? What, are you kidding me? You got that governor's race in Georgia. It's Adams who lost. Was that a last name? Adams, Stacey Adams, I believe, or something like
Abrams.
that. Abrams, Adams, Greenberg, Iceberg. What's the difference? You know,
that's an old joke. Greenberg, iceberg. What's the difference?
And she spent $100 million to lose. $100 million to lose. Could you imagine this?
No, I can't imagine that.
This is what's going on. This is not a democracy. This country's been taken over by the corporations. You know, something interesting. You know, they have this. They call it a stupid name, an inflation something bill, where they're going to give all this money to companies to build solar panels.
Gerald, listen to this. They call it the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
They somehow think that by spending more money than they take in taxes, they're going to reduce inflation. And it's like pouring gasoline on a fire in order to put the fire out. These people are crazy.
Yep.
This is the American leadership. This was a bipartisan piece of legislation. This
is what Mussolini would have called fascism, the merger of state and corporate powers.
Yes.
Only the bigs are getting the money. Only the bigs are getting the breaks. And we're paying for it. The little people.
Yes.
So now, you know, let's put this all into context of how this country is going down and what you wrote about in your article about Thanksgiving in America. What if the leadership of both parties gives only lip service to Thomas Jefferson's assertions in the Declaration of Independence that all persons, quote, are created equal and they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that when the government assaults our natural rights, we can alter or abolish it.
It's time to alter and abolish it. Jefferson believed that the government should be reconstituted at least once in every generation, that we shouldn't be saddled by laws and a constitution enacted in an era when the government was the servant of the people, because he knew with the passage of time, government would grow and liberty would shrink. But that statement that you just read, I believe, crystallizes the message I was trying to make. Government lies. Government claims it supports its own restraints, but by nature it doesn't. Government has broken away from the chains of the Constitution. Government thinks it can right any wrong and regulate any behavior and tax any event and insinuate itself into any human process with no self-restraint whatsoever.
No, this is, again, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Happiness has become a dirty word. You're not allowed to be happy anymore. Nobody ever talks about it. You know, in Washington's farewell address, he mentions happiness a number of times. And it's not in the culture anymore. It's like one bad rap. That's all we have. Everything is so negative. And what you call government, it's not government. They're a bunch of low-life pieces of scum crap clowns that are telling us what to do.
It's
and
a
again,
criminal.
how can anybody that calls themselves a man or a woman look up to these low-life creatures that are destroying our lives.
It's a criminal syndicate.
Yep.
Is what it is.
Yep, it's a crime syndicate. Yep, there's absolutely no doubt. They're murderers and thieves. As the cover of the Trends Journal this week, it's Democrats versus Republicans equals Bloods versus Crips, murderers and thieves. And
remember,
up that they're murderers and thieves. They steal our money. We're just talking about how they're stealing it with this BS act that they just passed. They're giving all this money to these companies. And from all around the world, by the way, these companies are bringing them in. They're bringing them from Europe, all over, and they're thieves in the sense that the banks are too big to fail. $29 trillion dumped into the banking system by the Federal Reserve between 2007 and 2010, to quote, because they're too big to fail. And then, of course, going on and on with the repo markets, dumping $7 trillion in from 2019 from September 2019 to January 2020, so the gamblers could keep gambling, and they're murderers. How many more wars do they have to start and keep killing people all over the world? And Americans keep accepting this stuff, and these stupid midterm elections proved it. I mean, look at the results. They elected nobodies.
Remember Murray Rothbard's famous one-liner, you're home one night relaxing, there's a knock at the door, you open the door, there's a guy with a gun, the guy points it at you and says, give me your money, I want to give it away in your name. And you go, I'm going to call the police. He says, don't bother, I am the police. It's a metaphor for the tax man. Gun, give me your money or else, so I can give it away in your name. I mean, that's what government does. You go to the bank to make a loan. It's not the bank.